Hello, everyone.
Hey there, folks.
This is Avery,
This is Rita.
and you're listening to
I Don't Know Her,
the podcast where we talk about women
and some other folks
that you've probably never heard of.
But you should have.
And now
today,
you will.
Yes. Almost.
So we were going to talk about journeys.
Yes.
We just got done interviewing Lynn Thompson, a debut author whose book is called The Best Liars in Riverview, and all of you should read it. I love it. It's a middle grade book about a young person whose best friend is missing, and they know something about where that kid might be, but keeps it to themselves. It's like part mystery, part adventure, but a lot of heart. And one of the reasons why we were talking about that book and to Lynn in general is because the main character goes on sort of their own introspective journey about their gender. And so we shared a little bit about our stuff. I have now started going to a speech therapist. Well, I've had my intake, and my first appointment is like next week. But already I've definitely been like, well, this is weird. I had this homework I had to do where she wrote down a whole bunch of things about like what separates quote unquote female or feminine voices from quote unquote male or masculine voices. And a lot of it has to do with like the ways in which people speak, right? So according to researchers, the majority of masculine speakers have like short staccato speech.
Okay.
And the majority of feminine speakers have more of a flowy thing, I guess, a flowy nature to their voices.
For me, like in my head visually, I think of like taking steps for that short staccato. And then like the flowy is more like water.
Yeah. So also female speakers or feminine speakers often speak with way more adjectives and adverbs and exclamatory statements.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh.
Wow.
Jeez. And whereas male or masculine speakers often don't have any of that superfluous language, right? And I was just finding all of that very interesting, and like I could understand a lot of that. And there was also stuff about intonation, but there was a part of it that's about your hand and your head and your hand gestures.
Okay.
And that's where I felt a little like icky, because I think then you're like, if you're actively trying to change the way that you like gesture and the way you hold your head when you speak and all of this stuff, for some people that's going to be great for them. For me, that felt a little bit prescriptive. Like, I'm not trying to be a man. And I don't necessarily want everyone to perceive me as a man.
Yeah. Also, I might be using the wrong language, but maybe like kind of performative. Is that wrong?
It's exceptionally performative, which is the point, right? You're supposed to start performing until it's you.
Okay.
But I was like, I think caught a little bit off guard by it because, like, you know, gay men exist. Like effeminate men exist. And it felt like there was, now this is not the speech therapist's fault. This is just like her telling me like, as you want to masculinize your voice, here are the things that are the ways in which we do that.
Okay.
But I was like, I felt like it was like trying, you know, that sort of very prescriptive nature of like, this is how women speak and this is how men speak. It really, one, reinforces gender stereotypes, which make me feel a little icky. And then also like the sort of erasure of like effeminate men and masculine women who exist, who are not necessarily trans people. They're just like gender nonconforming.
Yeah. Like
Abby is one of those people.
Yes.
She's just naturally a more masculine person. That's what she's always been like. So I was like, man, it just made me feel a little bit weird in my skin.
About it. Yeah. I would too, honestly. It was like, okay, this is how we're going to start acting now. So this is how we can present ourselves. Like, we can change how we can speak, but we don't have to change how our physicality is naturally.
And I guess if you want to be different, you do.
It's not fair.
I know it really made me feel a little bit weird about it. And so, here I am on my journey, and this is my new chapter is, hormones and speech therapy and things like that. I think she was a bit frustrated with me, honestly.
Why?
Well, I don't think that she's ever really worked with somebody who's not a binary trans person.
Okay.
And so when people come to see her for gender affirming speech therapy, it's to be more womanly or be more manly.
Ooh, I feel like that's kind of not like, she needs to have that middle ground. Like, there's going to be some queer people that are just like, I'm just working on this. I'm not trying to be A or B.
Well, and like the reason I wanted to go is because, there is this tendency among trans people, especially trans masculine people, where they have a tendency to all kind of sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to have a more natural sounding voice as testosterone is doing its work, because the thing is about voice changes, it's permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And so what testosterone does is it thickens the vocal cords, which is why your voice gets lower. But if you have spent your entire life speaking a certain way and in a certain register,
mm-hmm.
and then suddenly your vocal cords start thickening, you can have this tendency to not speak like right for what's happening to your body. And so you start to kind of sound like you're speaking through a voice modulator. It's just, it's really fucking common for trans people to kind of sound a little bit robotic, not in their cadence or whatever, but in their actual like tone. And I just don't want that to happen. I speak on a microphone a lot. I have to talk out loud to students all the time.
Yeah.
And so I want to be able to transition my voice along with the rest of me.
Yeah.
It's not just dropping in octaves because of the hormone. And so that's why I'm going, because it was a recommendation based on like my other trans friends who were like, oh, once you start T, you should definitely go see a speech therapist. So for me, it's like I'm trying to communicate that to her. And one, she was like, basically was like, I've never really heard of trans voice or like what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And that felt a little bit weird. I was like, well, I'm not making it up.
And I totally know what you're talking about too. And I am not a speech therapist.
Right. So that felt a little bit weird. And then two, because I'm not trying to look like, sound like, act like a man, I think she was like, so why are you here? Kind of. And like, again, I could just be reading into it, but that's definitely what I was like vibing from her.
Yeah.
Was that she was like, I don't know what to do with you. This might be
some rough work. I think you need to be careful with your comfortability.
I have noticed that since then, she was like, well, definitely start paying attention to like, people on TV or podcasts or whatever, and start to pay attention to the things that you're hearing and how people speak. And I was like, oh yeah, totally. But then I've started to also analyze my own fucking gestures.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So, and like I'm trying to change the way I.
Oh no, it's put a bug in your ear.
Yeah, it did. It really did.
Yeah.
It just like wormed its way right into my brain.
Yeah, it did. Okay. Well, when you catch yourself doing that, internalize your language and say, we don't need to do this.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
No. Well, queer journeys are fun. I'm on one.
You're on a new one?
I've been doing like some thinking. As far as if people have been following the podcast, they know that I am separated and in process of getting divorced. And I'm okay with sharing that I started seeing somebody. And he's queer as well. And identifies as a cisgender queer. Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about identity and about how we felt growing up as queer and knowing something was different, but not quite knowing how to fit. And I kind of started realizing I identify as bisexual. I don't really think that I am. I think I'm more identifying with being pansexual.
For you, what makes the difference?
I feel like bisexual was definitely gender, males or females. And I mean, I could be wrong. I'm still trying to learn this. But I feel like pansexual, I've been feeling like very attracted to just people and even attracted to like trans people and people who identify as all things on the spectrum, all kinds of colors, I want it all. I want the 34 flavors. I've just really been noticing, and I've always really felt that way, because when I get into conversations with people, if I'm connecting, I'm just like, do you want to go to bed? And just like having more, like now being with a queer person who's like more open to having queer conversations and about sexuality and like things that I like and that I have liked. I was like, oh, I've just always, that was the only word that I ever knew that I thought was me. But I was like, I like people. I like personalities. I like energy. I'm not looking like on the outside kind of thing. Like if we're connecting, then I have feelings.
I will say that I think that that's been a common sort of misconception / stereotype, is that bisexuality means I like cis men or cis women.
Yeah.
And that pansexuality includes everybody. But that's actually not true. Most bisexual people also are like, oh, I like everybody. I think what I think has happened is that the word bisexual implies two.
Yeah.
Right? Bi. Isn't a bicycle. Or isn't, you know what I mean? Like that means two. And so the perception has been, even if that's not necessarily true, that is only for people who like cis folks. And that pansexuality is more inclusive of non-cis identities. And I think that's really just going to be up to the individual. You know, I have a friend who identifies as bisexual who has dated people of all genders, but still likes the label of bisexual. And like, you know, that's how she identifies. And she's like, she'll get on a soapbox about it.
Oh, I would love to have a conversation.
Yeah. She's like, bisexual does not mean I only like cis people. So, you know, I think that it's being queer for me is a lot about exploration and continuing that work. Some of it is work, like understanding myself and other people better and more deeply. So I think you're entitled to decide what works best for you based on your criteria. If in your mind you're like bi because of the prefix means two and I like more than two, and pan means all.
Well, and still, it's like we were even having a conversation of like we still try to like fit the boxes, and I'm like, well, what box? But what if I want to be a circle? You know, what if I want to be a triangle? I'm still trying to figure it out, but that was something I came to a realization of. It was just like, and it's okay. It's like I think I do just like people. I like humans.
I've been watching a lot of porn lately.
Nice.
Because the testosterone is really working. Yeah. Yeah.
Send
anyway,
me some links.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is I just found this website / company, or I don't know what you call it, but they're called Gender Flux. And
I've never heard that.
No, I hadn't either. Anyway, I like Gender Flux because what I'm discovering is, as I'm like on this journey and have this testosterone pumping through my body, making me like really interested in myself and others, I'm like enjoying having some entertainment occasionally.
Yeah.
And I've been like really drawn towards trans porn, and like so much of it is fetishization though.
Okay.
You know, as is any kind of like,
it's out there.
Yeah,
like
you know, like lesbian porn is very fetish porn for straight men, right?
Yes. When they have like 3-inch nails on, I'm like, ain't real.
Although there are plenty of femmes who are very much into long nails.
Really?
Yeah.
Ouch.
I'm not sure how they make that work, but they make it work, and they've got their own thing. But yeah, so I was really like starting to get frustrated at finding a lot of like what I would consider trans porn meant for non-trans people.
Okay.
Right. And just like lesbian porn is not really meant for lesbians. So I was on the hunt and I finally came across this person. Oh, I think it's Nikki Hartz.
Okay.
And it was after I'd been like looking up specific people, like specific like people I would discover. I'd be like, okay, that person looks like somebody I would be interested in following. So I'm going to find them and see what they make and where do they go. And I found this gender flux, and I'm like, the first time in my life, I'm like, I will give you my money. You can have all my money. I want to be a subscriber. Just from the clips, I'm like, it's like people of different races. There's a wide variety of genders. And it just is like different body types. It's different kinds of sex. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like really into it. And wow, if myself 2 years ago were listening to this, they'd be like, what? Because I mean, I get it. I had just really kind of like fallen off the radar with the idea of sexuality and sex. It was just like, maybe it's not for me anymore. Granted, I think now I understand why I'd felt that way. One, because I wasn't feeling right in my body. Mm-hmm. And two, I had no fucking hormones.
Yeah. You didn't. So low.
So I didn't have a sex drive. I didn't have metabolism. Like there was so much stuff that I was missing that I currently have. And it makes me feel, one example, I have color in my cheeks. I didn't realize that I was like, that's why I was like sallow all the time. Mm-hmm. I like literally was not, I didn't have anything going on. Like it was just, I had a deficit in so many ways. And you know, it's reinvigorated myself, but it's also reinvigorated my marriage in really, I think, cool ways. And we're really enjoying each other. The other day, Abby was like, this is like when we first met.
I love that.
Boy, after 14 years to feel like it is still that giddy falling in love part, that's really cool.
I love that so much.
Yeah. I love it too.
Get it.
Boy, am I.
So am I.
It's nice. It's real nice. Highly recommend, everybody.
Gender flux.
I'm
let's get on my phone right now.
So you have a person for us today.
I do. Kind of one that I never thought I would bring to the table. It's not like crazy or anything, but just nothing I ever really thought about.
Okay.
Have you heard of Mary McMillan?
Mary McMillan? No, I've never heard of her.
She's called the mother of physical therapy.
Oh, that is very interesting. Okay, yes.
Yes.
I just quit my physical therapy because I thought it was useless. I've gone to very good physical therapy before. This particular one was a waste of my time.
Was it the one for your shoulder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Waste of my time.
So Mary was born in Hyde Park in Boston in 1880. She was born shortly after her parents immigrated from Scotland. And at the age of 5, Mary's mother gave birth to a baby girl. Unfortunately, the baby died very shortly after her mother gave birth.
Oh, awful.
And her mother was, I mean, obviously, this is 1880. So not the best circumstances for women who are giving birth. Her mother ended up dying from what they called consumption.
Oh, yeah, that's tuberculosis.
Yes. Probably why the baby didn't survive either. I'm probably guessing she was sick. After her mother passed away, her father remarried really quickly. Because,
you know, you got to have a woman to take care of a child.
Well, not really, because her father ended shipping her off. Her, yeah.
Mary,
so
right?
He remarried. He sent Mary to go live with her aunt in England. She began schooling with her aunt, and her aunt put her in a lot of activities to try to keep her busy. She ended up sparking a passion for what she called her passion for the body when she joined gymnastics. She loved the science of how bodies moved, how she was impressed of like how the body could be strong and how the different things you could do could affect your bodily health. Like she just got really interested in it. And I was wondering if it's because of her mother and her mother passing away because her mother was sick and ill, like maybe like somehow, how can I make my body strong?
Mm.
Her aunt was also a very good influence in her life. She was very headstrong, very independent, made sure that she raised Mary in a way where she had access to opportunities. It seemed like her aunt had money, wasn't married. So I wonder if like maybe she, like somebody left her some money or she didn't say she had a career because she focused all her time on Mary.
I mean, this seems like the ideal situation for Mary. It sounds like her dad was like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with you.
Go have fun with your aunt. After she graduated high school, Mary went to college at the University of Liverpool Gymnasium, which I thought sounded so weird. But things sounded weird back then. She took a two-year course in physical education. And after that, she headed... And so the physical education, too, is like learning how to, obviously, work out, strength, eat healthy, but also like how to take care of yourself when you're sick, like when you get certain illnesses and things like that. So it went a little bit beyond just the physicality of things.
So not what we would think of as like a PE teacher program.
Exactly. Okay. She's not learning how to do jumping jacks for 20 minutes.
Well, I'm sure that's not what PE teachers learn either.
True. After that, she headed to London for further courses, and she took, I want to take my time with these words, neuroanatomy.
Okay.
Which is the study of the nervous system. And also neurology, which is the branch of medicine to diagnose and treat disorders of the nervous system.
Yeah.
And she also took psychology as well, because she really believed in mental health as well as physical health.
Well, like a lot of that is just brain. Like she was obviously very interested in what the brain and the relationship between the brain and the body.
She lived in Liverpool until 1917 when she returned to the U.S. She was 37 when she came back to the States. So that was a long time over in England.
Yeah, because she left when she was young.
5.
Yeah, that's a long time.
In a book titled Mother of Physical Therapy by Mary Farrell, which I don't know if that's the Mary that follows us.
Mary Cronk Farrell.
Yeah.
You don't know?
I don't
think so.
I don't think it is.
What's the name of the book?
Mother of Physical Therapy.
Yeah, because I know her catalog, and that's not it.
But I saw the name, and I was like, no, I know she has that middle name. That's her writer's name. Mm-hmm. But I was like, interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
And this was also co-written with another woman called Marta Mobley. And Mary was quoted to say, "I had a rare gift and knew how to help physicians in areas of anatomy, physiology, muscle movement, and a myriad of healing techniques. It was clear after she was very religious, much prayer that my unwavering passion to help those in need and my talent as a therapist was unique and could be used to help many victims of impending battle. Simply put, I knew nothing of what the future held, but intuitively, I believed I was ordained to devote myself to this work. At any personal cost, I knew I had to go back to the U.S. and help."
What was the impetus to go back to the U.S.? I mean, because she mentioned battle. Was there a war?
Yes, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So when Mary returned to the U.S., the training she received a way better education than what they were doing in the U.S. So when she came back, the techniques that she learned over there were way more advanced than what they were doing. For the word physical therapy didn't even exist.
Well, that makes sense, yeah.
One of the studies she specialized in was with physical deformities and the principles of therapeutic massage. She began using her skills to help. It was during the polio outbreak.
Oh, yeah.
And she worked specifically with children, many of whom struggled with varying degrees of paralysis from the disease. So this was some of the first documented physical therapy that was happening in the U.S., and she was the one that was doing it. And she provided massage and exercise therapy for these patients, and it was mainly at the Children's Hospital in Boston.
Okay.
Because a lot of these children, they thought, you're just paralyzed.
Yeah, there was just like, oh, you're a hopeless cause now.
Yeah, you're in a wheelchair. good luck.
As we talked about with the person I talked about last week.
Yes.
Which is like, that was this point of view that was like, oh, you're suddenly not a functioning member of society.
Yeah. And she was like, no, if you tend to the muscles, if you work with them, if you take the time to actually like try to rehabilitate their bodies or just make them strong enough where they can
compensate.
Yes. Yeah. With her work at the hospital being such a success around 1918, Mary brought her techniques to the U.S. Army. She was sworn in as the first reconstruction aide, and this was a term that they used before they found the word physical therapist.
Oh, okay. So that was like the early physical therapy was called reconstruction.
Yeah. And Mary was the first one to be recognized as such in the United States as like an official professional physical therapist. She worked at Walter Reed Hospital, which was the Army's flagship medical center.
Mm-hmm.
And she also began teaching other nurses the techniques that were needed to help the wounded soldiers during World War I.
Oh.
There were over 200,000 wounded soldiers that came back.
Yeah. It was an exceptionally violent war.
And a lot of them lost limbs. That was the biggest thing, was amputees. She designed the Army's hospital's physical therapy procedures from scratch. It took her for fucking ever. Because she was like, okay, we don't even have a program to start with. So we're going to start from here and we're going to create a program. And it also took her longer because, why do you think?
Because she was a woman.
What do you think the doctors thought?
Oh, probably that what she does was like junk science and there was no point in it.
They were like, we're really skeptical about your program. Yeah. So she had to deal with a lot of bullshit. Creating this program from scratch, people kind of basically pushing against her. But there was one thing, you couldn't like deny that people were getting better because of her PT program. So it's like, you can't really argue junk science if somebody who couldn't walk is now walking.
Or if they couldn't lift a milk jug and now they can
and
lift
now
a
they
milk.
can.
Yeah. It's definitive proof that what she's doing is working.
Yeah. And also the mental health of her patients was getting a lot better.
Yeah, because when you feel capable, you feel like you are allowed to exist. Like no one wants to sit around and feel like everything has to be done for them. Like people want to feel necessary and useful.
That's also why I liked that she also did like the psychology side of it, so that she was able to like tend to not only their physical health, but their mental health as well. Because I've never really gone through any really hard PT, but I know that it's a struggle for people because you're so physically tired. You're mentally like challenging yourself. You get angry, you get sad.
Yeah. Like, I tore apart my arm as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's just hard. It's hard when you have a major traumatic injury to come back from. And you do need a lot of encouragement and support and help in ways that you otherwise may not.
So one of the parts that I read, I don't know if this is true or not, it popped up in a couple things in my research that she started to have like a special prescription pad where she would like recommend therapeutic like recommendations for her patients, and she would like write a script almost and give it to the doctor and be like, I am the medicine. Here's what this person needs. But nobody was really doing that at that time. They didn't do scripts for like medicines. They just treated people. So they were saying like she was like one of the first people that started using like.
Huh. Well, that seems weird.
I thought so too. And I was like, it was included in a couple of things. And I was like, well, was it then? I don't know. Did they have prescription papers back then? Because she would like see her patients and she would write down what they needed and give it to the doctor and be like, this is their medicine. It's me. And we'll work with this.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. It took time, but Mary's program worked, and it was hard to argue with the patients, like I said. Working with the wounded soldiers, many of the amputees, she started to want to further her studies. So she started working with how to create prosthetics.
Oh.
Yeah. So she started diving into that. And then she also started researching hydrotherapy, which is basically, that's used still today.
Oh yeah, and it's exceptionally helpful for people who need to build up muscle, but they can't. They need that resistance.
Because she knew that there was like more than one way to do this, And even like hydrotherapy, they use that for animals too, to like rehabilitate cats and dogs.
And horses.
Yeah. Taking that a step further, Mary decided to write her PT techniques down. She ended up writing a medical textbook.
I was just going to say, I bet she writes a textbook.
And it's called The Massage and Therapeutic Exercise. It was published in 1920. It was printed and distributed all over the U.S. And it's still in print today, and it's still used as a resource in medical schools.
Wow. Impressive.
I know. And I was like, from 1920?
I mean, if it's working, right? I'm sure that since then they've built on it.
Yes.
But some of those foundational techniques came from her.
After her book, Mary was invited to go to Reed College and teach a course on it. So she's actually invited as like a professor. She also decided it would be a good idea. She was like, I have this book. It's being distributed. All these people need to learn these techniques. She wanted to be concise. She didn't want things to be like interpreted. So she decided to form an organization where training could happen, her techniques could be standardized and shared easily. She formed what became the American Women's Physical Therapeutic Association. She was the president of that, and it's now changed to what it is still today, which is the American Physical Therapy Association.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that it was the American Women's Physical Therapy Association.
And now it's for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, was there a men's one at the time?
There was not. It was mostly women because it was like nurses.
Oh, it was considered like nursing work,
Yes.
which was, also a very female-dominated industry.
Yeah. So they changed the name. They actually celebrated their centennial last year in 2021. And Mary was the founder and she was the president of that association, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is. It's cool when something is still today a thing.
I was able to go to their website and like they had a really like fun like the founding of our organization, and it had her in there and they had a wonderful write-up. She continued her work in teaching for 10 years. And her life took a really kind of interesting turn.
Uh-oh.
The Rockefeller Foundation saw the work that she was doing, liked her publication. Obviously, her work was working. And they recruited her to be sent out internationally to set up other physical therapy, like communities.
That's fucking cool.
Right? She got paid to go do her job, like good money.
Yeah. But also just like you get handpicked to be the person who creates new programs around the country or around the world. That's
because the program
amazing.
we created was a success. So in 1932, she gets sent to China. There she would oversee the China Medical Board of the Rockefeller Foundation and lead their Department of Physical Therapy at Union Medical College in Peking. This made her the first international therapist ever, like physical therapist.
Wow.
While she was in China, she studied the language. She fell in love with the culture. She said she absolutely loved being there. She had a wonderful experience. She admitted in one of her journals that it was not an easy job, but she also wrote, "Who wants an easy job?"
Nope.
Sometimes it hits a note and sometimes it doesn't. I'm like, can I just go like drive a boat somewhere alone?
I'm really impressed that she learned Chinese.
She did.
It's an incredibly hard language because it is so drastically different from Germanic languages. Like it doesn't even remotely resemble it.
And since Mary was sponsored, she also requested part of her deal was she wanted a scholarship program. She wanted to set it up for young medical students to encourage them to apply and study for the profession. So not like an incentive.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is necessary work, but also here's a scholarship, which is, I think, brilliant.
Yeah, and it's also a way to give back.
She was happily running her program in China until 1941. Signs of impending war were starting to show. Imperial Japan was about to invade northern China. And so Mary was like, things got really tense. She was scared. So she's like, okay, I probably should just go back to the States. She traveled from Beijing to Manila in December of that year. She was too late. There was about 13,000 Americans that were also trying to evacuate. and she just couldn't get out. Japan launched an attack on the Philippines, then a U.S. colony on December 8th, 1941. 10 hours after that, there was the attack on Pearl Harbor. And within 3 weeks, Japan had conquered the Philippines, and Mary became a prisoner of war.
Okay, so I think I do know a little bit about this.
Okay.
About this part of the war, which I learned from Mary Farrell. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there were a whole bunch of nurses also imprisoned.
There was a lot. There was part of an article that I read where her and like other people in her PT program knew that they were going to be captured. So they drove a truck and they went and just got as many medical supplies as they could, because they thought, like, if we're going to be imprisoned, we're just going to try to smuggle like as much stuff that we can get in, or ask them if we can bring it in, like medicine, medical supplies, things like that, because they knew that they were going to need it.
Mm-hmm.
Along with many other foreigners, Mary was sent to Santo Tomas internment camp in the Philippines. Japanese prisoner of war camps were not great.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single POW camp in the world that was nice.
No.
It was not Club Med.
No. Riddled with dysentery, malaria, dengue fever, and they also suffered a lot from malnutrition and exposure because they weren't given like proper coverage to stay out of the rain, stay out of the sun, things like that.
Yeah, and the Philippines is a pretty wet country, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And while she was captured, she didn't let that stop her. Like I said, she took supplies. I was wondering if they just allowed her to bring them in or if they snuck them in. It wasn't too clear. But she did have other people that she was imprisoned with set up a little, like a hodgepodge medical camp. And so just to ensure that people had at least a little bit of medical care. And she was also still providing like physical therapy for people. Like people would come into the camp and they were wounded. So she would still attend to like their physical needs.
Was that like soldiers that were like American? Were they Japanese? Like what were they?
I think she did attend to some of the Japanese soldiers as well. She attended to the people who were imprisoned in the camp, of like Americans and Japanese.
Huh.
She didn't decide not to treat not the Japanese.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I was actually just thinking about like I know some of this, and it was a book by Mary Farrell that I was thinking of. It's called Pure Grit: How American World War II Nurses Survived Battle and Prison Camp in the Pacific. And she talks specifically about that in the one in the Philippines. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor blasted the U.S. in World War II. 101 American Army and Navy nurses serving in the Philippines were suddenly treating wounded and dying soldiers while bombs exploded all around them. So that is exactly where I knew that from.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mary Farrell.
Your brain is a well.
I know. It's a sponge. I just hold on to shit.
I'm always like, where am I? Who am I? And Avery's like, in 3rd grade.
I sold bunny bees.
Oh, the bunny bees.
In exchange for lewd and cough drops.
Also, at this time when she's in the camp, she's 61.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. She is not young.
She's not in the prime.
No, but she's still just trying to help people. She ends up getting severely sick with pneumonia. This is kind of interesting. They allowed her to go to a hospital in Shanghai. And then after that, they sent her back to an internment camp. It was the Taipei camp. So it's like, why would they want her to get out and go to a hospital and then send her back to where she could possibly get sick again?
Well, I imagine they sent her to a hospital because otherwise they would have been accused of war crimes.
Okay.
But she's still a prisoner, so they're not going to just release her.
So she had to go back. She was in that camp for 2 years.
Jesus.
Yeah. Until she was released. And she said her health was never the same, obviously. Probably very damaging. And this was a quote from her about being in the camp. I did not realize then that the physical therapy work I did in the internment camps would be my swan song. While it was one of the most difficult and challenging times of my life, the one outstanding joy during that time was the enjoyment of helping others, providing service for no money without price or equipment, performing without adequate food to keep our bodies' fires burning.
Huh. That's a really profound quote, too.
It is. I like that. Just like I said, her mental health awareness and also helping people's physical bodies. 'Cause I'm one of those people. I don't take care of my body.
Yeah, I know.
And it does a lot to your brain.
It does.
In 1959, Mary ended up passing away from, this word is hard for me, sorry, metastatic melanoma.
Mm-hmm.
And this was something that she suffered from because of the long hours of exposure. She,
In the Philippines?
yeah, suffered from the camps.
Yeah, because melanoma is skin cancer. And I always fuck up that word, too.
It's a hard one.
Anyway, I can say metastasized, but I can't say the like metastatic or whatever. Anyway, it just means that it's spreading.
Yeah. She dedicated her entire life to creating what, as like us in 2022, have access to a world where PT that can improve our quality of life. It strengthens and heals our bodies, which is very important. She never had any children. She never married. She was married to her job.
Yeah, her job was her family.
Yes.
Her job was her life.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Her story.
That's really great. I love that it went to that. I wonder if she's mentioned in
We're
Mary
going to have to
Crock
contact
Barrels.
Mary.
Yeah, because I'm like really curious because
that's why when the book was, it said Mary Farrell, I looked and I was like, no, that's not what Mary looks like.
Yeah, it's not her. That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing. It's Mary McMillan, right?
Mary McMillan.
The name of the person? Okay, very cool.
I got most of my information from an article written by Elizabeth Tratch called Meet Mary McMillan, the Mother of Physical Therapy, and another article called 10 Things You Didn't Know About Mary by Avery Simmons.
That's a great fucking title. Also, it's a great name. Huh?
Yeah. The book, Mary McMillan, The Mother of Physical Therapy, written by Mary Farrell and Marta Mobley. The Legacy of Mary McMillan by Mildred O. Elson. Also, The Untold Story of Mary McMillan, written by Ravi Kumar. And then also the American Physical Therapy Association's website. If you go to their website and you look into where they, like their founders page, it has a really nice history of Mary. They don't mention like too much of like her time being a prisoner. And I was wondering if just like sometimes that makes people feel.
It's probably because it's not related to the group.
Yeah.
Because by then she's not really running the group. She's doing something completely different.
And like I said, they celebrated their centennial last year. So the program she created has lasted for 101 years.
Yeah, that's incredible. Love that. And physical therapy is, I think, the unsung hero of the medical world. For me, I've had some of my best results in physical therapy. Now, I know I said that the person I was going to now is not worth my time, but that's because I know what good physical therapy is.
Okay.
And I have experienced it, and it has helped immensely. So to go to something and just feel like it's wasting my time, that's not real physical therapy.
Yeah.
Like,
you want to see results.
My average session, like when I was really having a hard time with like my autoimmune disease was really affecting all of my joints, and I was just having a really hard time. I would be able to go to physical therapy and tell them like, this is what's hurting and this is why, or like, this is the area. And they would give me a list of exercises to do, then do the exercises with me to make sure that I was having good form. The next time I came, they would see if I was continuing to have good form or if I needed to improve upon it. Also, was I ready for more resistance?
Mm-hmm.
Was I ready for more reps? Whatever it was, continuously editing how to do it. And then it always ended with an icing session.
Ooh, wonderful.
And it's just, it's not just like putting an ice pack on. They had those really amazing sleeves where, like let's say it's a knee injury, you slip it on your leg and it also does compression at the same time. And it has like ice cold water that flows through it. And it feels so good.
There was one thing that and I want to mention it. It like made me feel kind of like, well, I don't know if I really like that so much. She was very like kind of like she pushed sometimes.
Mm.
And she would be like, well, I'm not going to work with you if you're not going to, push your hardest, things like that. But I don't know if it was because she wanted people to try hard. I don't know. I've never been to physical therapy. And I know sometimes you do have to push your patient because they are mentally like, fuck this, And so,
and especially if it's an area that people aren't familiar with, or they hear from their doctor that it's junk.
Yeah.
They're not going to take it seriously.
Or dealing with like soldiers, honestly, a lot of men.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if she had to be firm.
Yeah.
Because she was like, get your ass up, we're doing this.
I would imagine so. And my history also with physical therapy is that a lot of people they get their exercises and they do their exercises at physical therapy, and then they're supposed to do them every day when they get home, and they just don't.
Yeah.
So then they show up the next session and there's no improvement. Well, if I were somebody who was working with somebody and they weren't trying when they weren't in the office with me.
What are we doing?
Yeah, what's the fucking point of this? You got to actually do the exercises at home. You can't just be like, I'm going to only do it once a week when I'm in your office. Not it.
Yeah.
So
there was like some quotes from her and I was like, that's mean. But also I was trying to put myself in her shoes and I was like, she probably was just trying to like push people.
Yeah, push people to
not give up.
Yeah. I will say that the thing I have really realized is like the worst thing anybody could ever say or internalize is that dumb fucking saying that, what's her face? The Giselle, no. What's that goddamn TV trainer?
I know who you're talking about.
Jillian Michaels.
Yes.
That bitch. Anyway.
She makes you feel like crap. I have some of her videos.
Right. And, she has that saying, and I know she's not the one who originated, but she would repeat it a lot in her videos, which was like, pain is weakness leaving the body.
Yes.
No. No, it is not. Pain is your body saying, stop.
Yeah.
Don't do this thing you're doing. It's bad for you.
It hurts.
And if I hadn't gone to really good physical therapists, I would still believe that fucking garbage. But I have been with good therapists who've been like, pain is your body saying, stop, I'm uncomfortable. Or danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah, you're going to snap something.
Yeah. So, obviously there's a big difference between like when you're experiencing discomfort because you're pushing yourself a little harder than you're normally used to. That is not pain.
That's discomfort.
That is discomfort. Pain is a reception that is happening in your brain that your body is telling your brain this needs to stop. So fuck Jillian Michaels. Go to physical therapists.
Go to a physical therapist and TED Talk.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And thank you to Lucas McIntyre for editing our show.
And thank you to Jennifer Finch for our raging theme music.
Thank you to our Patreons. Make sure you subscribe and go listen to our May bonus episode, which will be coming out in the next day or so. So hopefully by the time you're listening to this, you can be like, oh, I missed that. I'm going to go back and listen to it because Lynn Thompson was a blast.
A fucking delight.
Yes.
Alrighty, guys. Till next time.
Thank you. Goodbye.
There.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Talk to me, Goose.
Yeah.
Which means I'm Maverick.
Yeah. Although I think I'd rather never be Tom Cruise. Wait, what was Val Kilmer's character's name?
Iceman.
See, I want to be Iceman.
You want to be Iceman?
If you go back and rewatch that, he was like the one who was very much the better of the three.
Yeah, and that's why he was so like, y'all are fucking kids.
Right, like all he wanted them to do was like be safe and follow the rules.
Because it's very expensive airplane.
And also dangerous. Like, you could kill people.
Yeah.
And he's
I am
like,
a maverick, though. I'm stupid. And I'll
he's
just
like,
fucking
I
do
just don't want you to kill anybody. Seems like logical, reasonable. Why is he the bad guy?
I don't know.
I'm a maverick. Fucking Tom Cruise.
Sadly, I am Maverick. I'll probably get my best friend killed.
Hey, that's me.
Oh, no. Sorry.
No, thank you. Okay.
Highway to the danger zone.
Highway.
Have you ever watched that music video?
Zone.
If you want to ever see what it's like to be in a K-hole, watch that music video. Because Kenny Loggins in that video is, I swear to God, so coked up.
Holy shit, is that a Kenny Loggins song?
I think so. Kenny Loggins.
Wow. He sang so many nice little
Footloose
ballads. I guess he did that too. Huh?
Footloose is in I'm all right.
Nobody worry about me. We have been recording this entire time. So,
Lucas, maybe might have to include that somewhere as a mystery post.
Okay.
Okay.
I am ready.
Business.
I am ready.
I know I have to meet my sister in